Hello and welcome to Red Dwarf TV. I'm Bex Trista and you're watching the Smegcast episode 14 where we're talking about Red Dwarf series 12, episode 5, M-Corp. Spoilers away, M-Corp? M-Corp. Spoilers ahead, guys. In this episode, the Dwarfers upload the latest software to the Red Dwarf and discover the Jupiter Mining Corporation has been bought by M-Corp, a company that only allows products made by them and staff employed by them to be visible to their employees, causing everything and everyone to vanish. Today I'm here with Mary.
Good evening. Hello.
Hello. So right off the bat, this episode got rave reviews. After last episode where we spoke, Mary, can I just check what side of the fence you're on with this one? Was M-Corp and its very Black Mirror meets Red Dwarf humour all that you hoped for?
Absolutely. It
Yes.
is one of my favourite episodes of the new series. I have to say that I think that and Cured are up there in the top. They're my top two, probably joint favourites of kind of series 12. So yes, I absolutely adored it, and in fact, texted a friend saying, "Look, I know you're not into Red Dwarf, but you just have to watch this episode because it is so good, and it's just poking fun at so many current trends to do with, social media and big corporations and the like." So yes, I very much loved it. How about yourself?
Yeah, it's my favourite episode. I thought it was brilliant, and I actually did the same thing. I recommended this as the one episode of this series for someone to watch that is into Red Dwarf, but not so much that they're actually going to watch all of it or rush to it. And I said if you only watch one episode of this series, then this is the one you need to watch. As mentioned, it's a very Black Mirror episode. All of the ones so far, they had sort of messages and things in, and I mean, we had how would you treat a cloned Hitler who was a nice guy, even though you thought of him as evil when he wasn't evil because he's a clone, and there's quite big stuff for Red Dwarf to be dealing with. And this one was like a scary, funny, but scary potential vision of a branded future for the human race. What did you make of the M-Corp experience?
Yeah, frightening, and yeah, again, just kind of referencing Black Mirror and how that can be very prescient, that series. Just like my jaw kept dropping throughout the episode, and that's what prompted me to grab my phone and text my friend. Just the elements like having to buy products and just get kind of stuck in a loop in that experience, and just the kind of slightly sickening way she was talking. It was meant to be creepy, and it definitely works. And the idea that you have to end up paying with your life, I thought, this is what millions of people around the globe are doing every day when they spend too much time on social media. And I am the first to admit that I probably spend a bit too much time on it, but I am aware of it and I try to step away from it. So I loved that Red Dwarf was tackling this kind of issue. And I also loved that it was interesting that the friends, when the three of them kind of beamed in to try and rescue Lister, that the friends were all dressed in blue, in blue polo shirts, which is a colour associated with one particular social media company.
And also they all sort of looked like they were in a uniform, almost like a certain computer company's help staff.
Yeah,
it had that kind of
do you
feel.
know what? I had not thought of that, but now you've mentioned it, of course.
Yeah, they did look like a particular brand of genius, so to speak. It was scary. I was laughing, and at the same time I was like, this is funny. Terrible. Yeah, literally paying with your life is what we do. We have now our phones beep at us and they notify us and they draw you back in. And there's a thing that weirdly, coincidentally, I'd been researching recently, which is we used to have a phrase in marketing, advertising, filmmaking called jolts per minute, which is how many times you change the cut on something or get the user's attention or get someone, when you're watching a movie, when you get someone to look back at it, and it tricks the brain into thinking it's new information. And nowadays we measure that in jolts per second, which is why you have these big movies like your Transformers and these kind of things that they just cut, the camera keeps moving, the shot keeps changing, and you don't have time to process and think. It just keeps telling your brain, oh, it's new information, it sets up a reward thing. And this kind of just sort of brought all that back into my mind, and I was like, yeah, you are literally paying for everything with your time, with your life. They've just made it utterly literal and somehow funny, but scary. Oh, it was, yeah, it was so well done. And that clean, clinical look that they have, the white clinical look, is basically now visual shorthand for a perfect or sometimes too perfect future. And I'm going to say Apple because they are partly responsible for why this look has become so strongly associated with this future. I mean, do you think you could live there? Do you think any of the dwarfers could have survived it?
Well, you wouldn't survive, would you? I mean, Lister was nearly death's door when they finally managed to track him down. No, it was unsettling, and I would hope that all fans of the show, and maybe the odd non-fan or kind of very casual fan that might just happen to skip upon and watch this episode, will take the message. I read up on this kind of stuff anyway in my spare time, so I'm aware of what the internet and social media is doing to our brains, and notifications give you that dopamine hit. So I'm aware of all of that, and yet it still really scared me.
They really hit the nail on the head with it. I think they did research before putting this episode together because it had so many small touches and things that really sort of brought it home. And despite the fact that they exaggerated it and made some of the things like paying with your life really speeded up and literal, it was really well put together. Do you think if you were trapped in there as Lister was and you had that lovely, polite, very insistent saleswoman, that you would have started buying friends and things as he did?
I think I would have tried to fight it as hard as I can. Says the woman who has about 300 friends on Facebook, which is the other company I'm going to mention. But if I was within the M-Corp experience, I would try and fight as hard as I can. But as you can see, I mean, Lister is someone who's normally very resistant to authority, and yet he succumbed to it because, well, he kind of had to at the start, and then I guess he just got lulled into material bliss, but at what a cost.
Yeah, and what did you think of Helen George, the main guest star of this one, as Antia, the AI from Call the Midwife? I thought she was beautiful and terrifying.
Yeah, very succinct way of describing her. Yeah, I thought she played the part really well, and just that kind of almost Stepford wife smile where that she looks perfect. Her uniform was perfect, her smile was perfect, her makeup was perfect, her hair was perfect, but the smile didn't quite reach the eyes, and it's beautiful and sinister, and that's what makes your skin crawl and makes you think, oh no, please just. I think the concept of everything that they covered in probably a little over 24 minutes was very impressive.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree with what you're saying. What you say about the smile not reaching the eyes is a brilliant point, because you can smile without your mouth, you can smile with just your eyes, and she was, I'm going to have to rewatch a bit of it and have a closer look at her face, because that smile was so robotic, it was so fake, it was, she managed to be expressive without expressing anything at the same time, and she was quite charismatic almost in places, but completely emotionless, and that was it's quite a difficult role to do, actually. I applaud how well she managed to pull something like that off, because it's something that looks like a simple role, but I think is actually quite complicated to play.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Of the 5 life packages we have available to us, Platinum, Gold, Silver, Basic and Basic Light, where do you think you would be?
I'm not so much low maintenance. I'm highway maintenance as a rule. So I would probably I'd be keeping it on the down low with Basic Light, if I possibly could, and trying not to get tempted into paying with my life to upgrade to some of the higher packages. How about you?
Yeah, I do wonder exactly what came with his Basic Light and what was just the upgrades and what was just the ongoing maintenance fees. Like, it would have been nice to have seen what the Platinum one was. Maybe if they'd shown him an infomercial of what the different packages were, and then told him he could only have Basic Light. Because I'm assuming Platinum, you must have had, like, beautiful Adonises fanning you and feeding you peeled grapes and, be treated like a god or a goddess or something like that. Because Lister had a lot it looked quite nice. Like, you know, my house is not quite that neat and tidy, and not quite that full of posh nice things. So it would have been. I think that's the only thing that was missing for me, is that they didn't really show what the insane rich people packages would have been like for platinum. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And perhaps if Red Dwarf was in an hour slot instead of a half-hour slot, they could have explored that. They might have had the time and possibly the budget to do that. But I guess they just had a lot to fit in as it was, and they just kind of had to gloss over that and just know that we had the general gist of, you know, the kind of basic package even. Sorry, the basic package, and you know, the fancier things in life can get more fancy.
Yeah, would have been nice to have had a second of him standing in a room surrounded by everything you could ever dream of, and them going, not that one, not that one, not that one, and taking it away. That might have been quite good fun, since we'd already had the enjoyment of watching a lot of other things vanish. And you know what else was good about this episode? Cat opening the can of beer.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'd been waiting to figure out what that shot was, because it's in the intro sequence of the episodes, and I have spent a lot of the series going, what on earth is going on, where Cat's basically got a hose of beer in his sleeve. and that was brilliant payoff, because I'd spent literally half the entire series just going, what the hell is that shot about? It was brilliant.
Yeah, it was brilliant. All of those scenes where you know, Lister could only see M-Corp products, and he couldn't see any non M-Corp products anymore. All those scenes were brilliant, where he made himself beans on toast, and then
oh yes,
someone half inches a slice. He's like, "Oh, what are you doing? Oh no, Cat, it's all right. Come back.
You can have my toast." I like that he's lying on the bed and it's invisible, and he keeps tripping over things and trips over his guitar at one point, doesn't he, as well? You hear the sound of it. But I think for me, that beer gag, it was probably the cheapest bit in the entire episode.
But very effective.
But it was just, that I could watch that. I could make an animated GIF and just watch that over and over. Especially when Cat's just sort of like, well, if there isn't any beer in here, then what's this? And they're just looking at each other, and they're both looking at each other like, are you completely mad? It was just, it was an absolutely lovely moment between the two of them. And I think that for humour-wise, the cheapest gag was the best one of the episode for me. Have you got a favourite part?
There was a similar gag a few minutes earlier on. You're talking about cheap but effective, where they were still in the science room, and it was just before they'd started to disappear, and Crichton was testing his hypothesis, and he was picking up M-Corp products and showing him to Lister, can you see this? Yes. Can you see this? Yes. And then the point where he held up, which Lister made that quip, I'm hoping, you remember the vibrating thing? And he said, I'm hoping that's an electric toothbrush. Again, that really made me laugh.
The acting on that as well, when he was holding his hand as if he had this vibrating thing trying to escape from it. I mean, that's not that easy to do convincingly, but the look on his face, everything about it was just, the comedy timing, I think, in this episode, when we weren't being terrified by it, was really, really spot on.
Yeah, very strong.
Yeah. The other thing I wondered about this episode at the end, when they do actually rescue Lister, is why didn't they grab any of the products? Why didn't they grab that lovely white guitar or something as they dragged him away? I felt really sorry for the poor guitar. They literally put it down and then ran off with him, and I was like, he might be able to play a tune on that. That's a good guitar.
Oh, Bex, that's only going to drag you back into M-Corp world. You have to leave it all behind. You just got to let it go. And I think I think they were probably so terrified by it all, they just want to get it out anyway. But if you retain any of those products, then you're just going to get sucked back in again. That's how it happens. I wonder,
in fact, once you're fixed, can you see any of the M-Corp products? Or do they only allow people paying for them to see them? Maybe he would have had an invisible guitar, the ultimate air guitar. Tell me that wouldn't be good.
Very clever.
Because they didn't really cover that, but I think that, I do wonder if M-Corp would work the other way round if it was still kind of, running in any way on the ship. But I guess they did, maybe when they reset the ship's computer, it would have just deleted it all again. It's hard to tell. It's one of those ones where it's sort of, does a standard Red Dwarf / Simpsons thing, which is the end of the episode, and everything is back as exactly as it was at the start.
Yeah.
Which I think worked quite well in this case, because otherwise the repercussions would have been pretty huge. What did you think? I'm going to try and get this sentence out. What did you think about the end of the episode, which was the perfect recreation of the start of the episode called The End in Series 1?
Oh. Glorious.
It's a good question. That I'm quite proud of that one.
It was glorious. And just the kind of, I remember a kind of hearing, is it the audience's, almost a bit like what I just did, but like their kind of acknowledgement and realization, because the penny drops and you realize what is occurring. It's a stroke of genius. Really, really loved that. It just worked. Yeah, it was for the hardcore fans like us and many others out there, it was just so good. It was just such a nice moment. For a casual fan, they're probably not going to get it. They might have been left scratching their head. They would maybe have to go look it up online or go read about it. What did all that mean? But yeah, I loved it. It was just superb.
Yeah, it was absolutely beautiful. It was such a perfect thing with the way he sort of like has his hands, and they must have rewatched the original scene a load of times to get, because the pace they were walking at, everything to me looked absolutely spot on. And yeah, I loved that moment. I thought it was absolute bit of genius. And we've seen older versions of Rimmer when they had the nanobots recreate Red Dwarf. We get an original Rimmer back, and we've had various points where we've had like Rimmer sort of reset a bit, and he's got very confused in the timey-wimey stuff now as to which version of Rimmer we've actually even got going for us. But we've never seen Lister kind of revert back, and it just reminds you how much his character actually has grown and changed. And that was an absolutely wonderful way to end that episode. Loved it. So for this one, I think this is going to be slightly easier than it was on the last podcast.
Look, last time was easy for me. You just said I was wrong, and look, that's fine.
In the most, respectful way. And I said, what do politicians say? The kind, honourable, gentle woman is wrong. So for this one, out of 5 stars, where do you rate it?
5.
Yes, that is not that there's any correct answer, of course, but if I were to say there were a correct answer, which of course I wouldn't, that would be the correct answer, and I would too give this one 5 out of 5. It is my favourite episode of the series, and possibly the last couple of series, if not more. Absolutely loved it. Well, thank you very much for joining me and discussing this one. It's been fun, and when I upgrade from my basic light to silver or gold, and I can speak to you again, then we shall do this again, I think.
Cool, good stuff.
Right, thank you very much, Mary, and I will speak to you soon. For everybody else, thank you very much for listening. This has been Red Dwarf TV, the Smegcast, and if you want to hear more Red Dwarf news, see exclusive interviews and Red Dwarf content, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you very much again, and it's goodbye from me and Mary. Bye!
Bye!
Yay!
Yay!
Success.
Okay, all done and dusted in half an hour.
That's because we rock. And this time you were right, which helps enormously.
Whatever.